Okay, so this is the third and final work in progress video for my mega size Dokuro Zaku. And I'm starting off with a little bit of masking. I actually have already painted the white parts. And as you can tell from the design, the white is basically just the bone patterns. There's a few parts that are solid white, like the fingers and the skull, but most of the rest of it is all going to be masked off and then had black sprayed on top of it. So that's what I'm in the process of doing right now. And I'm kind of doing two masking methods. I'm doing some regular old masking tape. What I'm going to do is, or what I'm actually in the process of doing, lay a piece of masking tape on here and then draw out the bone pattern on top of the masking tape and then pull it off and then cut out that pattern with the hobby knife. It's kind of hard to do it with this camera right in front of my face, but you get the idea. Just like that. Oops. Down here. And then I can just peel this off. I don't know if any of that actually got on camera, my bad. Anyway, and then I can put that piece of masking tape right back on the part where I want it to be. There you go. And also I'm using the Mr. Masking Solution, and if you've watched my last two model kit work in progress series, the high grade goof and high grade origin gun tank, you'll be pretty familiar with that. See, I did the rib cage with the Mr. Masking Saw, and also over here the hands and the knees and the legs as well. This one over here is actually a combination of masking tape and Mr. Masking Saw. So I've got a bit more of this to do. Still got to do the skirt armor and the arms, and then I'll be ready to spray on all the black. Okay, so I've got the first shade of black painted on, and I'm not quite ready to take the Mr. Masking Saw off just yet. With real grades, you know, they always have this two-tone color scheme for the armor. And since the Mega Size Zaku is basically the same design as the real grade, I'm going to recreate that with my paint job. But since the whole thing, or almost the whole thing, is going to be black, I figured that would look a little bit boring, even if it does have the skeleton pattern on there. So I'm going to do two different shades. The straight black that you see here, I've actually already done a little bit of highlighting on it. So even already it's not pure black. There's a little bit of highlighting there. But I'm going to go in, and the lighter places on the real grade, I'm just using the photos on the internet as a reference, I'm going to do in a lighter shade, basically just a dark gray, and do that for the appropriate areas on the kit. And then after that, I'm just going to do 2 tones. And then once I get that sprayed on, which shouldn't take very long, the masking will take longer than the actual airbrushing, I'll be ready to remove all the masking tape and show off the skeleton pattern. Alright, so right now I've basically got everything painted, and I'm now in the process of just removing all this masking tape. There was a lot of masking on this kit. I think this might be the most amount of masking I've ever done on a single model kit before. Anyway, I did something a little special on the shield here. I went in with the Mr. Masking Sol and sort of painted on a mono-eye skull emblem, and then used some masking tape to put a little mono-eye on there. And if you will give me a second to peel this little square up. Alright. And now, just like on the goof and the gun tank, just going to take an eraser and use that to erase away the Mr. Masking Sol. And that, I think, is a pretty nifty looking skull emblem for the shield. I like the way that turned out a lot. Really, really nice. I basically just used the Skull Squadron emblem from Macross and copied that, but just gave it a mono eye, since this is obviously a Xeon mobile suit. So that turned out really good. And then I've also got some other masking I've been doing. Really tried to go kind of all out on this guy, like the undersides of the skirt armor and stuff like that. So let's see if I can sort of carefully get this masking tape up. Come on. Okay. There we go. Alright. So, the way I did this was basically just laying pieces of masking tape along the panels on the other underside of the skirt armor. And then, just cutting along the edge of it with a very sharp brand new X-Acto blade. And as long as you've done all your prep work and got a nice coat of primer on it, you shouldn't really have to worry about the paint peeling up, even if you've cut on it with an X-Acto blade. So, and it's a very slow, tedious process, but it does, if I can not drop the parts, it does make for some really, really nice results. And I've been trying to go the extra mile on my kits lately, just to sort of up my game in preparation for GBWC this year. And this is one of those things. Alright, so next step is panel lining, and I've just got a bottle of Mr. Weathering Color, and I'm not going to do an all over wash because I'm going to be doing a little bit of weathering on this kit, but not a ton. I don't want it to be anywhere near as weathered as the gun tank or the goof that I just finished, but I am going to do a little bit of weathering, a little bit of chipping, a little bit of pigment powder. So I'm just doing some pinpoint panel lining here, and then I'll clean it up with a paper towel. Gonna do the white parts with brown because I want it to have a just slightly brownish tint, kind of like how a skeleton in real life isn't pure white. It's like kind of a off-white beige color. And then all the gray parts I'll panel line in black. So, just panel lining. This will take a while, and then I'll come back once I'm finished. Okay, so I am doing the decals right now, and for the decals on this kit, if you'll remember back in the first work in progress video, I said I was originally planning to do a mega-sized black TriStar Zaku. So what I did was I ordered from Samuel Decal a 1/48 scale version of the real grade Zaku decals. So that's what I'm working with here. The skeleton pattern sort of gets in the way with a few of the decals. I've still been able to use most of them. Like, as far as the caution markings and stuff, some of the stripy decals I haven't been able to use. Like, I was able to use these ones on the bottom of the leg, and let's see, I was able to use some of them, not because the skirt armor has stripes going all the way around, but obviously because of this pelvic skeleton pattern, I just used these on the very sides right there. And then but yeah, most of the caution markings and stuff I was able to use. And I'm just sort of finishing up now, working on the weapons. And yeah, pretty straightforward, run-of-the-mill stuff. A lot of people have noticed that I've actually deleted my decal tutorial video. I thought that it was kind of dated, and going back and watching it, I feel like some of the information could be a little bit more accurate. So I think I deleted 3 of my tutorials: the decal tutorial, panel lining tutorial, and the resin casting tutorial. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to remake those in better video quality and with more accurate, more comprehensive information. So those tutorials will be remade and re-uploaded soon, so don't worry about that. And I'm not going to be doing too awfully much weathering on this guy, but I do want to do a little bit. So just starting off with a little bit of dry brushing. It's maybe a little bit too dramatic. So just here and there, just like in the high contact areas, like the handles and the weapons, the feet, knees, anywhere that's gonna be like a high contact area. Ooh, like the punch shield, for example. But not gonna get too crazy with it. Because I don't want them to look too awfully beat up. And after the dry brushing, doing some chipping. I've got two different shades of kind of a brownish gray I mixed up for the chipping color. I'm basically using the light gray on the black parts and then the dark gray on the white parts. And just doing brush chipping this time around. This kit was way too big to attempt to do hairspray chipping. And I thought about using salt chipping, but with all the masking I had to do with this kit, that would have gotten really complex really quick. So, and seeing as how I'm not going to be doing like a ton of weathering on this kit, I figured just using a paintbrush was going to end up being the best option for this guy. And same old chipping rules apply, just sort of going along the edges and the places that are going to have the most contact, like the feet. In fact, I think probably a good 75% of the chipping I do on this kit is going to be on the feet and the lower legs. So this is the second one. I've already finished the chipping on the first foot, or first leg rather. So most of the chipping is going to be down near the ground. Once I get towards the higher elevations like the torso and the head and the arms, they'll have less chipping. And the very last thing I'm doing before top coat is just adding some pigment around the feet and the lower legs to do some dust and dirt and stuff, so it looks like it's actually been, you know, walking around in a dusty, dirty environment. Alrighty, everything is top coated, and now the very last part is final assembly. Luckily, from the way this kit is designed, final assembly is actually going to be really easy because everything just plugs together in big old gigantic polycaps. So sometimes final assembly, like on a master grade, can be kind of frustrating, or especially on like a resin kit or a custom modified kit. But usually with high grades, final assembly isn't too bad. And this kit is basically a giant high grade, so I predict that this will go relatively easily. Alrighty, and after several months of work, the mega-sized Docro Zaku is finally finished. And to be honest, this project took a lot longer than I thought it was going to. Of course, then again, I did change up my plan in the middle of construction. But anyway, this finally concludes my build-off with Zaku Aurelius. And I had a lot of fun. I really like this mega-sized Zaku. The reason I bought this kit in the beginning was just because it was so big and chunky and had so much surface detail. It just looked like a really fun kit to paint. And it was. I had a whole lot of fun painting this kit. Probably the most masking I've ever done on a single kit before. And I think it turned out looking pretty darn good. Let's see, just for comparison, the original line art, Docro Zaku, and my Docro Zaku. So, I think I got it relatively close. The head might be a little bit different. I made the head a little bit more detailed than the one in the line art, but that was a little bit of artistic liberty. The LEDs turned out decent. The one in the head, I painted like the outside edge of the clear part for the mono eye, and just in an attempt to sort of do some light blocking to keep that whole inside area from glowing. And I think it worked a little bit too well, because before I did that the mono eye was nice and big and bright, but now that I've done that light blocking with the black paint, the mono eye looks a little bit too small, but you know, at least it's still there. And let's see, the lens on the machine gun lights up very nicely, looks pretty darn good. I got a little bit carried away with the weathering. I said I was going to do some very light weathering. It's not nearly as weathered as the gun tank that I finished before this guy, but still it's more than I originally was going to when I started. I just sort of got carried away because it's so fun doing the chipping and the dry brushing and pigments and stuff. It's hard to kind of stop yourself, so I guess that's something I need to work on. Really liking this punch shield a lot. Very happy with that. I really like this big goofy skull mono eye decal. I thought that was fun. And overall, I think everything turned out very, very nice. These scratch built parts that I made, the handle for the shield, the machine gun, well, that's half scratch built. Modified the heat hawk and the chest and the head. I think all the modifications turned out fairly well, and the paint job looks good, so I think we can finally call this project a wrap. So with that, I'll see you guys next time.